Hello, everyone. Today we're joined by a special guest, Michaela from the InterClimate Network. Hi, Michaela.
Hi, hello, lovely to be here.
Do you want to introduce yourself and just a bit more about what you do within the organisation?
Fantastic. So I'm the program director for InterClimate Network. We're a small organisation, been working for over a decade now. Well, actually more like 15 years. Specifically, I'm responsible for our team output. And been heavily involved with running model climate conferences over the years. So that's my overall role.
And so the InterClimate Network's got a mission to inspire young people across the UK to lead, advocate for, and take action on climate change. Before we dip into some of the things around COP30, I wonder, do you want to talk a bit more about the kind of wider work that the charity, the organisation does?
Great. Yeah, so we're very much focused on secondary age work, and it came out years ago that this was our priority because it seemed like there was a gap at the time. There was an awful lot of material and emphasis on primary age. And then we heard from secondary school students that things dropped off a shelf when they got to secondary school with all of the curriculum pressures. And it's always been the case that it's been very passionate teachers, really supportive individuals that we've connected with over these years. That it remains the case. What we're seeing now is a bit of a shift with the need for climate action planning that's come through. So we're really interested in stimulating involvement in climate critical thinking.
Hmm.
So the model climate conferences we've found have been an excellent way of doing that over the years because it sort of gets the process started, and then it's what you're going to do in your own environment. So climate action is a major part of what we do, supporting behaviour change and particularly student-led action in schools. So we've been recently running climate action surveys that are student-led and really capture what's going on, what's the views of students in school. And we found that that's a really great vehicle for engaging students with thinking about planning, and in reverse, engaging school leadership with thinking about how to engage and keep their students involved in decision making
Hmm.
on climate action that they can be part of. So it's been twin parts, and a really big part of our mission is to make sure that student voices, youth voices are heard. So it's finding platforms and creating platforms for youth voices. And that may be in the conferences. We may well have climate action panels where we have leaders of the councils, local action marketplaces, but as a way for young people to have a voice in their local communities as well as at school.
Mm. I think one thing that you seem to have done very well is that building relationships with local authorities, engaging with those sort of youth-led conferences. And then is it that you've got quite a broad-reaching network of facilitators who often come and help and host those
Yeah.
sorts of things? Yeah.
That's right. So as I say, we're quite a small network, but we're quite committed, and we've got our own sort of associates. So we're all freelance associates, but we've been committed over a long time. But we also work in partnership with Just Ideas, which is a great network of associates as well. So we're able to expand during conference season and meet all of our all of the engagements that we have, particularly working with councils and also with host schools as well, bringing other schools together.
Hmm. So I guess the thing that we really want to talk about are these COP30, you say mock COP or climate conferences. And I guess
Yes.
the organization has built a reputation on these sorts of really engaging kind of student engagement activities. So do you want to talk more about the COP30 materials? And
Yeah, fantastic. So, and it really came about. Lockdown was such a strange time for schools and for us as well. The face-to-face things had to change, but we really used that time to put the resources that we've been developing over all of these years of running conferences into an online resource. We were able to work through with a European partnership at the time as well to make sure it reached more broadly. But COP21 in Glasgow was a real focal point, and so we wanted to see a resource go online that could be openly accessed by anybody. So it is an open access resource. No charges, nothing. And every year we commit to making it up to date and making it relevant to the COP themes that are happening in that year. So we're at COP30, which means 30 years of the world working together through the Conference of the Parties. which is COP, and it's through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So just to say that, these worlds are filled with acronyms and they're complex, and we only claim to be touching the surface of it. But what we like to do with our resource is try and take the complex and make it manageable. So we have a team of people, some of whom are trustees, some are volunteers. This year we had a great geography student from Durham helping us, as well as other people. So professional sustainability professionals have helped us, and we update each country briefing.
Mhm.
So just to explain, we have a pack basically. We have a teacher guide, and that could also be a lead facilitator and student leads as well using that. Then we have a student pack so that every country that we've selected has a country briefing and and tasks for a student group to work through. So this is about them understanding their country and then representing that country in a model COP. There's plenty of opportunity for research. It doesn't have to. We've given quite a lot of background, but we also give lots of links, hopefully to reputable
Mhm.
sources, so that student groups can then go off and do as much research as they like. And as well, within the student pack, we give guidance on how to write an opening statement. So a key task is them formulating in 1 minute what that country is doing. So, everything is about sort of potential to expand, but then trying to keep it manageable.
Mm.
So that's the student pack. Yeah.
And so you sort of say, from a teacher's perspective, there's multiple ways that they might engage with this, and the depth of their engagement could vary. Do you want to talk a bit more about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're very conscious that, there's little time, there's very little time in normal working classrooms, but we've devised not just the student pack, but also supporting activities. So if it's used in a classroom, you may have a sequence of lessons, and we've provided sort of a presentation really with notes about what the UN is, what they're aiming for. Some of the terms, trying to understand what consensus means, in global terms, and then leading to actually hearing some opening speeches at the UN
Mm.
from the COP last year. So that's always really interesting just
Yeah,
to
yeah,
get a flavour of what the COP is. So it can be used in the classroom, and those activities then build up to running a mini mock COP in a classroom. So that could be a 1 hour lesson where these activities feed into. And we know it's been used like that.
yeah.
We've had some great feedback from a teacher we worked with in Hounslow, and she's run it for every year 7 and 8 for a few years now. So
Wow.
she just runs it across this
Yeah,
term.
that sounds
So there's
great.
that, right through to other examples where an academy trust has used the materials. Each school in their chain takes on a country, and then they've done it online. They've run
Mhm.
an online COP, and that's really exciting to
Yeah.
see. And then we take it to the other stage where we bring schools together, and that's multiple schools in an area, normally funded and supported by the council, and we bring students to the council chambers. So they've had to do this background using the same resource, and then we run it as though they're at a mock COP.
Mm. And I guess it's worth then mentioning like the value of this as well. And I'm sure you've got testimony from teachers and from students, but I think what's really interesting with this is that it bridges both the knowledge and understanding around climate and nature and the COP kind of conferences, but also then there are some really important skills that are being developed through this. It's really sort of engaging and interactive in that sense from a young person's perspective.
That's right. And you asked me 15 years ago, would I still be running model COPs? I would say no. But actually we are, because of, I think, the dual nature that you've just pinpointed. It's really engaging in critical thinking. You have to understand your perspective from a country, but also how countries are interacting. So there's that global sort of macro
Mm,
view that you're getting. And at the same time, exactly what you've just said, the range of skills is quite big, for a student having to step up. from sort of, presenting skills, team working, through to sort of critical thinking on the spot, through to real world positioning, all of
Mm,
that. And I think that's why it's particularly suited to secondary age. And I'd say as well, because it's role play, ultimately,
mm,
that actually it's not putting the student on the spot as
yeah.
individuals. They're able to take on a mantle of another position.
Yeah, there's a sort of abstract nature to it. And I think that also
Yeah,
then lends itself, there's an element of developing empathy because you're having to put yourself in someone else's situation. And
absolutely.
again, I've experienced this with students in these settings where then they suddenly realize the context of a certain country and the position of that and how that
Yeah.
then sits against other countries.
Absolutely. And that some of them are quite difficult positions. Students are put in, for example, producing a country that's producing a lot of fossil fuels and doesn't really want to change. They may not have any empathy with that at all, but they have to understand that position. Yeah.
Well, great. So I guess what we're saying is there's this conference this year happening in Brazil, and it can feel quite distant, but this is a way that teachers can really bring this, to their young people, to their students. Um,
Absolutely. So, in a way, it doesn't matter when you run it, but we quite like to run them during COP itself, or at least to show them because there's so much more in the news, and then you can be actually making that connection to what's being said, or if you run your mock COP afterwards, you can pick up the highlights of what's been said during COP. I mean, you can even live stream COP now, so if you wanted,
mm,
you could see what's happening in that. So, and then some of the interest is that at the end of your process, we're asking them to think about themes, themes that actually will um, be reflected about how change is happening in our cities, through energy transitions, through our oceans, the work on that, and also on food and farming.
mm,
So they are issues that we can then relate to ourselves. So
mm.
be out there, but it's particularly in our big conferences, we really like that to then shift to, okay, so what are we doing about climate action in
Yeah.
school and in our community?
Yeah, that sounds really, really good. So just to finish then, I guess what we're suggesting this is an invitation to teachers. There's a wonderful resource. This is really accessible. It's flexible. This is something that all teachers should try and find a way to support and link into their teaching. So is there one piece of advice? Is there something you'd say to a teacher who was maybe initially thinking, oh, yeah, how might they go about this?
I think so. I think the main thing is to dive in, dive into the resource. It looks overwhelming, but hopefully it's got a logic to it. So we're trying to make it so logical for the students to follow and that it's student led. So quite a lot of it is not to be overwhelmed with the resource. Just think, well, actually, we're giving one briefing to one set of students. And even within that, there can be there are three questions, and you can tailor the questions to the particular group of students, who according to what they can do. And if you use it, really let us know. There's a little form on the resource. What we're trying to do is make a map of all of the schools who are engaged in our conferences this year. So if you use it, just please do let us know and we'll add your school to the map or your network of schools to show just the level of interest and engagement in climate change and climate change issues, which we know is at the heart of, young people's concerns.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for having me. It's great.